hobby family? It is your boy K-Dub. This is K-Dub's High Five. 5 rapid fire questions with your favorite hobby faces. And today we bring in Mike Retro Trading Cards. He's the host of Retro Card Chat every Monday on his YouTube channel. I will make sure to link the description of that in this video, as well as he is on Twitter, YouTube, eBay, and Facebook. So I will make sure to link all those in the descriptions. How are you doing today, Mike?
I'm good. Happy to be here finally.
Yeah.
Apologize for delaying last week, but I'm here now, so it's all that matters, right?
Hey, it's totally fine, man. The schedules are out the window when it comes to High Five. We just kind of roll with it when we can. So I really appreciate you taking the time to do it. How it works: 5 questions, all hobby related. They're coming at you one right after another. Ready to take on the High Five?
I'm ready. Let's
All
go.
right. You are Mike's Retro Trading Cards. For someone who doesn't know who you are, never seen you before, never interacted, walk me through a little bit who you feel like you are in the social media hobby world.
Boy, good question. Well, like I like to say, like I used to have a card shop. I had a card shop from 1991 to 2004. So kind of I feel like that Twitter especially and YouTube a little bit is an extension of my card shop. Like
Mm.
I like to sell cards on there. I love to sell cards to people. Like it's not really about money, but like when you sell cards and you know who likes what and you're doing
Mm.
stack sales and stuff like that, when I'm out buying cards at shows and stuff, like I get excited. Like if I get a Barry Sanders card, I'm like, oh, I know people are gonna like this card and want it. So I get a lot of excitement out of the selling side of it. I do like to collect too, but like I've always been a card seller, so like I'm a little different in terms of collecting than like the normal collector. But so I kind of see my Twitter as like an extension of this virtual card shop that I used to own back in the 90s. And
Yeah.
people follow me. It's like opening the door and coming in my shop back in 1996.
Now, was it Mike's Retro Trade? Obviously, maybe it was just Mike's Trading Cards back then because it wasn't retro back then. But what was the
It
name of
was
the shop?
it was actually Mike's Upper Deck, and it
Okay.
didn't have to do with the card company Upper Deck. That was just kind of
Yeah,
my,
yeah.
the upper deck of a stadium. But when I got back into this, I was kind of like, you know what? I don't want there to be any kind of legal problem using that. So, the guys that do the YouTube channel and I like kind of worked out the name and kind of settled on Mike's Retro Trading Cards.
And how long? I mean, 2004 card shop closed up. How long before you began kind of getting back into the virtual card shop world, like you talked about?
Actually, when I closed up like at the end of 2004, and I
Okay.
completely walked away from cards for
Oh,
almost 17 years.
yeah.
And 2021, actually, EP on the channel, we have a EP and Joe Day and I, the guys that do the Retro Card Chat
Yeah.
podcast, we do the content on my channel. Like, we're all friends. I'm friends with them because of my card shop. Like,
Mm.
they were former customers and we've just
Cool.
developed a lifelong friendship. And we have a text thread together, a group message for like, we had it for like fantasy football,
Mm.
but EP kept saying, cards are getting hot again. Cards are getting hot again. I'm like, what? And I remember, I think it was beginning of 2021, I looked on eBay and they had a sports card market report. And I read it and I was like, holy cow, I need to start going through the cards I have left over, see
Yes.
if I have anything of value. So, in early 2021, I started digging through my storage area. I probably have 750,000 cards in there that I mean, literally, they've been sitting in there since I closed in 2004,
Yeah.
never touched. Somebody could have offered me $5,000 for them at any point, and I would have been like, yes, please take them.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I started going through them. I found a lot of good stuff, and you know, I. I remember saying to both of them, I'm like, oh, I'm just going through this. I'm going to get the stuff out. I'm going to grade stuff. I'm going to sell it and I'm going to be out of it. And here we are, what,
Yes.
3 years later, and I'm still doing it. And I have cards everywhere. I've taken over 2 bedrooms in my house with cards. So yeah, so I guess I'm back in.
Yeah, absolutely. You can't keep the hobby out of somebody, you know. You can get out of the hobby, but the hobby never gets out of you, and eventually it finds its way back into your
It
life
sure
some way
did,
or
yeah.
another. So, all right, well let's talk a little bit about maybe like influences when it comes to your card collecting. So let's maybe start early. early when you first started collecting, and then maybe you can move a little bit into like getting into the shop and then now doing the YouTube stuff. We can kind of take it threefold.
Uh, when I was a kid, I was like a baseball nerd. I was so into baseball as a kid. I was that kid who knew everybody's batting
Mhm.
stance, knew everybody's pitching style. And, I remember there was this tiny little spot at the bottom of our steps in our house. Like, it was literally like you came down the bottom of the steps and was the front door. So there was no room there, but I used to always throw a ball up there and like play this baseball game in my head with it. And then I started doing that outside. So, I was always into baseball. I have baseball cards. Like, I have a George Brett rookie, which I still haven't been able to find, that I pulled as a kid,
Yeah.
that I got as a kid. But like, I really remember like the early 80s being kind of the first time that I remember actually opening cards, like Fernando Valenzuela trying to get his rookie cards.
Yeah.
So even though I had cards earlier, I really didn't start collecting till then. But like, my dad was my main influence on
Sure.
that. And, we went to baseball games together. I got to go to the 1980 World Series
Oh,
as a
nice.
kid, which was exciting. And, he was really the factor in getting into cards. And
Yeah.
uh got out of them a little. Your high school years, you're not collecting cards, you're too worried about girls
Yeah.
and all that
Yeah.
stuff, being cool, all that stuff. And
Mhm.
I went to college, and probably, I don't know, maybe my junior year of college or stuff, my dad and I started getting back into cards. There was a card shop maybe a half hour away that we started going to. We started buying cards together. We'd go over there every time I was home or in the summertime and buy packs. And
Huh.
I graduated school the next year. My dad had the idea about opening a card shop, and I was playing. I'm a guitar player, and I was playing in bands at the time. So like, that kind of gave me excuse to be able to pursue playing in bands and stuff. Like, I was gonna go to grad school, but I decided, I can do this card shop thing, and then I can play in my band and stuff. So yeah, so
Best of both worlds. I love it.
yeah. So yeah, my dad was really instrumental in doing that. And, I remember, we invested whatever amount of money, but we like bought a bunch of older wax and ripped it
Yeah.
open to have inventory for the store, which was like the coolest thing ever. So,
Kevin,
and yeah, and then,
let's
like I
open
said, I
time
ran
to
the,
start a business. That sounds perfect.
yeah, I know, like, oh, I don't know, twist my arm. Yeah, okay, let's do it. But so yeah, and then, my dad passed away in 2001. And like, the shop just wasn't the same. Plus, the card industry itself, like trying to get by in a small town, having a card shop, the fact that I did it for 14 years, I was able to close on my own accord. I didn't have to, but
Mm.
I wanted more for myself at that point in time. It just wasn't the same anymore. So
Yeah.
I closed up, and that was the end of that chapter. And
Mm.
now, like, my only influences are really Joe and EP from the podcast, because like,
Gotcha.
we always are like, oh, look at this thing I'm thinking about, because we want the other two people to say buy it, because they're
Yes.
always going to say just buy it. So we always do that for confirmation. And we
That's
went
kind
to
of
the
friends right
national.
there.
Yeah, I mean, that's what they're for, right? Like,
Love it.
to tell
I
you to
love it.
do that thing
Yeah.
you really want to do. So
Now,
yeah.
you'd met these guys through the shop prior to, correct? So
Yeah.
these were real life friends that now you do social media hobby with?
Yeah.
That's cool.
um
How cool is that?
like, Joe was a 12-year-old nerdy kid that came into my shop collecting Star Trek cards back in the
Okay.
day. And we always tell this story. I like jokingly said, like, do you remember the Impel Star Trek? They had a Captain Kirk hologram
I
card that
remember
came
the
out of it.
Impel WCW cards, but
Yeah.
I'm sure they did various pop culture things. So yeah.
Yeah. So like, he came into the shop the first time, and I was like acting like the cool guy. I'm like, oh, you want the Captain Kirk hologram? I'll pick one. And I pulled out a pack and I opened it. And wouldn't you know that that card was in there.
So
And him as this 12-year-old
at
nerdy
12, I
kid,
get it. I get it
he
as a
was like,
12-year-old.
oh,
He's like,
like, so
this guy
yeah.
can do it all. This guy can do it all. This is what
So
you're his
yeah,
goat, man.
we're here like 30 years later, still best friends, and EP
How
as
cool.
well. Like he always came in like I think he was still in high school when he first
Wow.
started coming in too. They're both a little younger than me,
Yeah,
and
love it.
but it's great to have friends, and like
Yeah.
that's what I enjoy about the hobby, or like the people you meet and the relationships you can build with it. Just it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I mean, the hobby is much more fun when we get to do it with other people. I mean,
Oh,
it's for sure.
absolutely,
And
yeah.
I think that's the beauty of social media hobby is, it's really kind of opened up this door of connections and relationships, kind of like you were talking about. To whereas if you are in a small town, like myself, I can connect with people who collect what I collect how I collect,
Hmm.
on different parts of the country, and have conversations and text messages and that. And we live in a world where it's pretty cool. We can do those things these days. So
Yes, it is.
yeah, cool. All right, man. Well, let's talk about for you collecting. When it
Okay.
comes to the Grail chase, the Grail card. What's a card that you've always wanted for your collection and why?
Okay, the card I've always wanted for my collection, and it's currently on eBay. And I've come to terms with the fact that I'm never going to have this card in my collection. So let me
Okay.
preface my answer. But the card is a 2014 Topps Chrome WWE Paul Heyman Superfractor 101.
Okay.
So I collect Paul Heyman cards. Like
Okay.
that was the one thing when I got back into the hobby. It's like, what do I really like? I like wrestling cards. I'm like,
Mm.
I used to love watching ECW
Oh,
back in the
yes.
day. And like
Yes.
Paul Heyman, like I always loved that. Like he's fantastic now. I was like, you know what? His cards aren't going to be terribly expensive. I'm
Mm.
going to buy him, but they're actually fairly expensive. The ironic twist to that, but yeah, that his super refractor is on eBay right now for I think $5,000 or $6,000. But I like, again, at this point in my life, there's no way I'm going to spend that
Yeah.
kind of money on a card. I could take my family on a really nice vacation somewhere. So
Yeah.
I don't care. I'm not going to buy that card. That's not me. That's
Yeah.
not who I am. I don't care to do that. I would love to have it, but
Mm.
I'm never going to have it. So, yeah,
Absolutely.
unfortunately, I mean, I don't know. Maybe it's a good thing that you're not going to get your grail, because
It,
then you don't really have to worry about it. So,
exactly. Exactly. It continues to stay behind the glass, and you just continue to
yeah,
try and look. So that's I guess that's what makes it the Grail, right? It continues to
yeah,
stay in your line of sight forever, going after it. So, man, I didn't see that coming, man. I mean, I was a big WWE guy in the late '90s, 2000s, and I don't think you can think ECW without thinking of Paul Heyman's voice, kind of just
yeah.
his
I know.
loud, boisterous personality. I mean, it was just that's cool. That's cool. All right, well let's get a little bit into the product then. So
Okay.
we got your Grail item there. Didn't see that one coming. Let's go Grail product. You got all the money in the world. You can rip any hobby box you want, past, present, future that you would like. What would it be and why?
That's a tough one because there's so much I would love to go back and rip.
Yes.
But uh, I think I would love to rip a box of 1993 Finest Baseball,
Okay.
just because even back when I had my shop, like that product was so hot
Mm,
from the time it came out, and it was so limited that I don't think I ever had any of the wax product in my shop. So,
mm,
like I know that the odds of pulling like a Ken Griffey Jr. refractor are ridiculously low, and I'm not going to be able to do it. But considering I never got a chance to do
mm.
that, like that's one of the few products from the time period that I was actually
Yeah.
open that I never got to open. So like that part of me, like I would feel fulfilled being able, I'd feel sick probably after I opened it, but you know, I would feel fulfilled getting a chance to finally open a
Yeah.
box of that.
Is that product like, I mean, where's that at in the market these days? Is that a highly sought after 93 product or is it reasonably, I mean,
Yeah, no, they're, I don't know what they are by the box, but I know like individual packs are like $75 a
okay.
pack.
Okay.
So you're talking, I don't know, probably 1,500 to
Okay.
$2,000 a box. So
Which
it's
is
not. I mean, yeah, when you look at
yes,
Panini
yes,
products,
yes.
like
It's
I
funny
could buy
though.
a box of something new.
Funny though, we're in a time where it's like 1,500 bucks. I'm like, that's kind of where things are at right now. Like
Yeah,
you said, not that I would go out and spend, but in my mind, I'm like, oh well, I guess that's kind of reasonable. But it's
not
really like
terrible.
you think about it, you're like, 1,500 bucks is a lot of money to spend on a box and 93 fine
Yeah.
cards. But
And
anyway,
especially, where I remember what everything used to cost.
yes,
So
yeah, your perspective is way different from most for
yeah,
sure.
it really is.
Um,
And like older wax, like all the stuff from the 90s and like early 2000s
mm,
is not worth what it costs.
absolutely.
Like you have to pretty much get the best
Yep.
card
Yep.
and send it to PSA and get a 10 out of it to
Yep.
cover the cost. So like I
Yep.
kind of hope that some of this stuff has a price correction on that at
Yeah.
some point, because there are things I would like to rip that I
Likewise.
just I can't justify putting the
Yeah.
money into
Makes no
ripping.
sense.
So yeah,
You're buying the wrap box, literally, is
yeah,
what it is.
yeah,
Yeah.
you are.
Oh, all right, man. Well, this question excites me now because I didn't realize you had the card shop history. Let's think about a little bit where the hobby's at today, and where you were at in the hobby business card shop. Like, what do you think the hobby can learn today from how things were done in the '90s? Like, what do you think we can take or apply from '90s collecting, retro collecting, and put it in today's hobby?
Innovation is
Hmm.
clear. Like there's nothing that's innovative that's made anymore. Like that's the one thing. Like when I opened my shop in 1991, you had basic tops cards, Donruss, Fleer, and I saw all the new products come out, and I saw all the like the things like this that like Pacific would do,
Yeah.
and it's just like it was such an exciting time because
Mm.
every product that came out, they were trying to do something. Some of it was really stupid. Like, I love to show off my Jose Cruz Jr. Pacific Cube. These were the dumbest things in the world, but you have to give them credit that they
Trying.
were
Absolutely.
trying.
Absolutely.
So, and like every company was doing that, and
Mm.
it's just like with the exclusive licensing, like the
Mhm.
companies are on cruise control, like,
Agreed.
but like Fanatics is going to own everything. What do you have to lose by trying something different?
Yeah.
And I would love to see insert cards come back
Yes.
and mean something in the hobby again,
Mm.
because there was so much cool stuff that was done in the 90s, and like you could make them limited, and like look at downtowns and on campus cards, like they're still really popular.
Mm.
Kabooms are really popular. You
Yeah.
can make inserts that are still popular if you limit them, if you don't put two of them in every pack. So you
Yes.
know I think they could really learn a lot just by looking back to the 90s and going, what were some of the companies doing that got people excited that we
Mm.
might be able to borrow from that to get people excited about it again? Because like I love die cut insert cards. Like I said,
Yes.
this card is just absolutely ridiculous, but I love it.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
like I think people would love that. Like even newer collectors, you could give them something where they go, wow, that's different. I
Yes.
kind of like that. So
And I think that was the beauty of it, man, is like
yeah.
there was anything could be in those packs. I mean, we have today where it's like, yeah, 97 different parallels, but I missed a lot of that innovation and creativity and I think a lot of that came from, you're right. You had multiple companies who had
Hmm.
licensing. So they were all competing against each other. And it would be really neat for Fanatics to kind of look back and go, okay, let's create a competition within ourselves, within our own
Hmm.
company, where we can
Yeah.
have these different, maybe branches or different groups that come together, and who can create the coolest die cut, throw them all in your products and see what happens. I think there's a lot of room for creativity and innovation in the hobby right now. So I think
Hmm.
you're spot on, hit the nail on the head. So yeah.
Great
Well,
minds think alike.
yeah, 90s minds always think alike, my friend.
Absolutely.
Okay. Well, here we go then. I'm gonna throw a
Okay.
bonus at you, man. This is off the cuff here. Let's say one '90s insert that Fanatics could bring back. If they could bring back one '90s insert set, What would you
Oh
recommend? I mean,
man,
what would you recommend them going with?
boy, that's tough.
Maybe it's too much. Maybe it's too much, but if you could think maybe not maybe just off the top of your head, what's an insert set that you would say, "This is something to think about," you know? Like
Man,
like, I just saw this, I never, it was a somebody posted a Jordan card on Twitter today, and it was like, the Great Steal or, it was a defensive card, and I Topps has this set, it's out of 96 Topps, and I was like, "Wow, that is a really just great looking card." It was glossy, it was shiny,
yeah,
kinda had the chain link on it, you know, defense or whatever, keep
yeah.
I don't know, those are that was one that I thought was cool, but I don't know.
Great stuff. I mean, unfortunately, Upper Deck has like the Fleer license, or I would
Mm,
use something like the Jambalayas and stuff are cool.
yeah.
Like the Duncan Go Nuts
Oh, goodness.
cards,
Yes,
like
yes, yes.
they're fantastic. Like I love those because of the acetate. Like I'm a huge
Mm,
fan of the
yes,
acetate cards. So
agreed, agreed.
if they could do something like that, like imagine having current basketball product with
Yes.
like a Dunkin' Go Nuts insert set, like those sets that are extremely popular
Mm,
from back in the 90s that
yeah,
you can't buy anymore. If you had them in a new product, people would go crazy for them.
agreed,
So
agreed,
yeah,
agreed.
there's a lot of them out there they could pick from, but I think the Dunkin' Go Nuts would probably be
Yeah.
a really cool one, and they could adapt it to the different sports.
Yes,
And
yes,
yeah.
and I mean, you got high definition cameras now, I mean,
Oh, I
everything,
know.
image quality, I mean, you're
But they
spot on.
have all those cameras and they waste all the
Yep.
photography. Like there's no photography on most of the
Yes,
cards
yes,
anymore.
yes, totally agree, totally
I was
agree.
going through some cards last night and I just saw Tim Duncan. I think it was a Stadium Club Chrome card, and it was Tim Duncan and Akeem Olajuwon. I'm like, this card is fantastic,
Yes,
and
yes,
you just like that dumb stuff like that. You don't even get because it's just everything's blurred out
yes,
and photoshopped on like Prism cards now. So,
100%, 100%. All right, man, you hit the bonus, we cleared the list, throw it up,
all right,
high five at the end, high five, boom. Uh,
all right.
Hey, Mike Retro Trading Cards. He's on all the social media platforms. I'll make sure to plug it all in the description of this video. Please make sure you subscribe to the channel DizzyDub1 and follow me on Twitter or X at Mr. KDub. Shout out to our High Five endorsers, Midwest Box Breaks, and LJ's Card Shop. Mike, man, this is my favorite thing to talk about, 90s sports cards. So
This was a blast. Yeah.
thank you for sharing cards. Thank you for showing cards. Thank you
And
for
I have some of these for you too. I'll bring them to
oh
the National for you.
and nothing's I can even smell it, man, through this right now. I can get it, man. It's just the beauty of the night. Yellow top loaders, save yellow top loaders. We got to get t-shirts for the national or something, man.
Absolutely. Yeah.
All right, man. I appreciate it again. Thank you guys for watching. Y'all take care. We'll catch you guys next time on the next high five.